The single greatest weakness fundamentally embedded in the modern human psyche is the desperate, agonizing need to be understood by the external world. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned like circus animals to perform for approval, to explain our actions, to justify our desires, and to constantly seek external validation for our internal reality. You walk around with a perpetual court case going on in your head, constantly preparing defensive arguments for a judge and jury that do not even exist. When someone misinterprets your silence as arrogance, you feel a frantic, panicked urge to correct them. When someone questions your motives, you feel compelled to write a dissertation explaining your good intentions. You must wake up and realize that this impulse to explain yourself is not a sign of being a good communicator. It is the ultimate symptom of a beggar's mindset. Every single time you open your mouth to defend your character to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you are subconsciously begging them for permission to exist. You are handing them the supreme authority to validate your reality. You are saying, "Please agree with my view of myself so that I can feel comfortable in my own skin." This is an incredibly pathetic and dangerous way to live. You are outsourcing your self-worth to the fluctuating, biased, and often idiotic opinions of the herd. You have to understand that most people view the world through a narrow lens crafted by their own unresolved traumas, deep-seated insecurities, and limited intelligence. They are not judging the objective reality of who you are. They are judging a projection of their own internal chaos that they have plastered onto you. When you try to explain yourself to these people, you are attempting to pour the ocean of your complex truth into the tiny, cracked teacup of their perception. It is a complete waste of your precious energy. True power begins the moment you deeply internalize the fact that your existence requires absolutely zero external justification. You do not owe anyone an explanation for why you are evolving, why you want more money, why you cut off toxic family members, or why you prefer solitude over mindless socializing. Your choices are validated by the simple fact that you made them. The moment you stop explaining, you stop begging, and you finally start living as a sovereign entity. Once you cease the endless, exhausting cycle of over-explanation, you begin to harness one of the darkest and most potent psychological weapons available to man: the power of strategic ambiguity. Human beings are hardwired to fear the unknown and to despise uncertainty. Their brains demand neat little categories to put people into so they can feel safe and in control. When you refuse to define yourself for them, when you refuse to lay out your entire life philosophy in an easily digestible format, you become a walking psychological void. You become a blank canvas. You become a human Rorschach test, because they cannot figure you out, because they cannot easily label you as good or bad, friend or enemy. Their brains start to short-circuit, and in that moment of confusion, they do something fascinating. They begin to project their own deepest fears, desires, and insecurities onto your silence. If they are deeply insecure and jealous, They will interpret your quiet confidence as arrogant narcissism. If they are manipulative and untrustworthy, they will assume your strategic silence is a sign that you are plotting against them. If they are weak and dependent, they will see your independence as cold aloofness. Let them do this. Do not interrupt their projections. By allowing them to misunderstand you, you are getting a free, unfiltered look directly into the darkest corners of their psyche, without ever having to ask a single question. Their interpretation of your ambiguity tells you absolutely nothing about who you are, but it tells you everything you need to know about who they are. You must become comfortable being the villain in their poorly written story. You must get comfortable with the rumors they invent to fill the vacuum of information you have created. These rumors are not insults. They are the desperate attempts of small minds trying to comprehend something bigger than themselves. By remaining ambiguous, you retain 100% of the power in the dynamic because you know the truth. And they are just guessing in the dark. You become an unsolvable puzzle that haunts their thoughts, while you go about your business completely unbutteth to successfully execute this level of detachment. You must build an impenetrable stoic fortress within your own mind. You cannot allow others to misunderstand you if your own self-image is fragile and dependent on their feedback. You need to develop an internal guidance system so robust, so deeply anchored in your own principles and reality, that the howling winds of external opinion do not even register on your instruments. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors and Stoic philosophers, understood that the opinions of others are just transient noise, like the barking of dogs or the buzzing of flies. You do not argue with a fly. You swat it away or you ignore it. You must begin to view the judgments of the herd in the same way. Why would you value the appraisal of people who do not even know themselves? Why would you let the criticism of someone who has achieved nothing stop you from building your empire? You have to reach a point of psychological maturity where you realize that you are the only qualified judge of your own actions. You know your intentions. You know the discipline you put in the dark. You know the sacrifices you are making. Nobody else has the clearance level required to access that data. Therefore, their assessments are fundamentally flawed and irrelevant. When you build this fortress, you stop reacting to misinterpretations because you realize there is nothing to react to. It's just noise. It's just wind blowing against solid stone. If they think you are stupid, let them. If they think you are evil, let them. If they think you are failing while you are quietly building, definitely let them. Their misunderstanding is your camouflage. It allows you to operate without their interference. The most dangerous man is the one who knows exactly who he is, and therefore has absolutely zero need to convince anyone else. Now we move from defense to offense. We move from simply enduring being misunderstood to actively weaponizing it as a tool of dominance. Most people use silence passively as a way to hide, but the dark psychologist uses silence actively as a blade. When someone deliberately misinterprets your actions to bait you into a fight, or when they spread a malicious lie to destroy your reputation, Your instinct will be to launch a counterattack with facts and logic. You must override this instinct. Instead, you hit them with the most devastating weapon of all: offensive silence and total, crushing indifference. When you refuse to correct a misunderstanding, you deny the aggressor the fuel they need to sustain their attack. They want drama. They want a back-and-forth battle. They want you to get down in the mud with them and wrestle. By refusing to engage, by refusing to even acknowledge their false narrative, you are silently communicating that they are beneath your notice. You are treating their massive, earth-shattering drama as if it were an insignificant speck of dust on your shoulder. You just brush it off and keep walking. This level of indifference is psychologically shattering to toxic people. It makes them feel small, irrelevant, and powerless. They will escalate their attacks, trying harder and harder to get a rise out of you, desperately trying to prove that they matter. And the more they escalate while you remain unmoved, the more insane and pathetic they look to everyone else watching. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting their own toxicity back onto them. You let their misunderstanding fester and grow until it consumes them, while you remain completely untouched by the flames they lit. You are not ignoring them because you are afraid of conflict. You are ignoring them because you have accurately assessed their value to your life and found it to be zero. The final destination of this journey is a state of absolute, untouchable freedom. When you no longer fear being misunderstood, you are finally free to be completely and unapologetically yourself. You no longer have to dim your light to make others comfortable. You no longer have to censor your words to avoid offending sensitive egos. You no longer have to shrink yourself to fit into the tiny boxes society has prepared for you. You realize that your reputation is not in your control. Your reputation is just what people whisper about you when you are not in the room. Trying to control that is like trying to control the weather. True freedom comes when you release that need for control and focus entirely on your character. Your character is what you actually are. Your reputation is merely what others perceive you to be. The master focuses on the reality. The slave focuses on the perception. When you reach this state, you walk through the world differently. You move with a heaviness and a certainty that intimidates the weak and inspires the strong. You become like a ghost passing through walls. The judgments of others simply pass right through you without sticking. You are no longer tethered to the herd by the invisible chains of validation. You have cut the cord. You are flying solo. And yes, it is lonely up there sometimes. And yes, people will call you cold, arrogant, or strange. Let them misunderstand you all the way to your grave. Because while they are busy gossiping and trying to figure you out, you will be busy building a legacy that they will have no choice but to respect in the end. The art of being untouchable is simply the art of realizing that nothing external can touch you unless you give it permission. Nay, you revoke that permission forever.